Every night at 3:33 a.m., someone knocked on apartment 404. Nobody ever saw who it was. For 17 years. The knocking came at exactly 3:33 a.m. 3 slow knocks, always the same rhythm. Knock, knock, knock. The hallway security cameras never recorded anyone. The motion sensors never detected movement. Yet every resident on the 4th floor heard it, every single night. Until someone finally opened the door. After that, apartment 404 became empty. Again. Detective Lucas Hale never believed ghost stories. 42 years old, 20 years in homicide. Every impossible case he'd ever solved eventually became ordinary. A hidden room, a clever killer, a forgotten witness. There was always an answer. That confidence disappeared. The morning he received the case file labeled Raven Court Apartments, apartment 404, 4 missing tenants, no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no DNA. The only thing they had in common, every one of them had opened the door. At 3:33 a.m., the apartment manager refused to enter. Instead, he handed Lucas a heavy brass key. "I quit yesterday." Lucas frowned. "Because of this?" The old man nodded. "I've worked here 31 years. I've watched 11 families move into 404. Nobody stays longer than 6 months." Lucas looked at the key. "It can't be that simple." The manager didn't smile. "It isn't." He slowly pointed toward the 4th floor. "The apartment is always empty, before the police arrive." By sunset, Lucas stood outside Raven Court, 12 stories, built in 1964, concrete stained black by decades of rain. Half the windows were dark. Even though the building was nearly full, the lobby felt strangely quiet. No children, no televisions, no conversations behind apartment doors. Only the faint hum of old fluorescent lights. The elevator refused to go higher than the 3rd floor. Lucas took the stairs. Halfway to the 4th floor, he noticed something impossible. Every wall clock in the stairwell showed a different time. 8, 12 p.m., 9:41 p.m., 1:07 a.m., 6:58 p.m. Only one clock. Mounted directly outside apartment 404, displayed exactly 3:33. Its second hand didn't move. It simply waited. Lucas unlocked the apartment. The air smelled like old paper and rain. Everything inside remained perfectly furnished. Dinner plates still rested on the table. A television sat paused on a black screen. A cup of coffee remained half full, still warm. Lucas touched it. Impossible. The missing tenant had vanished 3 days ago. Then, he noticed the calendar hanging in the kitchen. Every date had been crossed out, except one. Tonight, beneath today's date, someone had written a sentence in thick black marker. "Don't answer the 3rd knock." Lucas stared at the words. His phone vibrated. "Dispatch." "Lucas?" "Yeah, we've got something." "What?" Silence. Then the dispatcher whispered, "We just reviewed the security footage." "And?" "The camera inside apartment 404 recorded someone standing behind you." Lucas slowly turned around. The apartment was empty. Then, 3 slow knocks echoed from the front door. Knock, knock. The 3rd knock never came. The missing 3rd knock, Lucas didn't breathe. The 3rd knock never came. Silence filled apartment 404. Not ordinary silence, the kind that made every tiny sound seem too loud. His heartbeat, the refrigerator humming, the fluorescent light buzzing overhead. Everything else. Nothing. The dispatcher was still on the phone. "Lucas," he whispered. "I'm here. What's happening?" Lucas looked toward the front door. Someone knocked. "You have company?" No. Only one word escaped him. "Almost." He slowly approached the door. His hand hovered above the handle. The brass knob felt strangely warm, as though someone had been holding it from the other side. Waiting. Lucas looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. Not just empty. Wrong. The hallway lights had disappeared. The carpet was gone. The walls no longer existed. Beyond the door, there was only endless darkness. His pulse quickened. He stepped back immediately. The dispatcher spoke again. "Lucas, I looked through the peephole, and there isn't a hallway anymore." Silence. "Then, I need you to leave." Lucas frowned. "Why?" "We checked the building blueprints. What about them?" The dispatcher hesitated. "There has never been an apartment 404. Lucas laughed, a nervous laugh. "I'm standing inside it." "No." The dispatcher answered quietly. "The fourth floor skips from 403 to 405. Lucas slowly looked toward the apartment door. The brass numbers, 404, had disappeared. Only 2 tiny screw holes remained, as though the numbers had never existed. A cold breeze drifted through the apartment. Every light flickered once, twice, then stabilized. The television suddenly turned on by itself. Static. Only static. After a few seconds, a black and white image slowly emerged. An apartment hallway. Lucas immediately recognized it. His hallway. Outside the front door. The camera angle was from the ceiling. Exactly where the security camera should have been. The timestamp read 3:33 a.m. Tomorrow. Lucas leaned closer. The hallway was empty. Then, the apartment door opened. Someone stepped out, wearing Lucas's coat, Lucas's shoes, Lucas's FBI badge. It was him. He watched himself walk calmly into the hallway. Stop. Turn toward the camera. Smile. Then, speak. The television had no sound, but Lucas read his own lips clearly. "Don't open it." The image immediately dissolved back into static. A loud crash came from the bedroom. Lucas drew his pistol, slowly moved down the narrow hallway. The bedroom door stood open. The room looked untouched. A neatly made bed, a dresser, 1 chair, nothing else. Then, he noticed the closet door, slowly swinging. Open, closed, open, closed. No wind. Lucas pulled the closet open. Empty. Except for a single cardboard box, covered in dust. His name was written across the lid. Lucas Hale. He froze. Someone had prepared it. Long before he arrived. Inside the box lay dozens of cassette tapes, each labeled with a date. April 8th, 2026. April 9th. April 10th. Every day for the next 30 years. At the bottom, one final tape. No date. Only a handwritten sentence. "Play this after the 3rd knock." Lucas slowly looked toward the apartment door. At that exact moment, the 3rd knock finally came. Knock. Every clock inside apartment 404 instantly changed. Not to 3:33, to 12 o'clock. Then, every clock stopped forever. The tape that knew tomorrow, the 3rd knock, echoed through apartment 404. Then, nothing, no footsteps, no voice beyond the door, only silence. Lucas looked at the cassette tape still resting in his hand. "Play this after the 3rd knock." Slowly, he walked into the living room. An old cassette recorder sat on the coffee table. He was certain it hadn't been there before. Dust covered everything else. Not the recorder. It looked recently used. Lucas inserted the tape. His finger hovered above the play button. The dispatcher was still connected. Lucas, I'm about to play something. What is it? I don't know. He pressed play. Static. 5 long seconds of static. Then, a man's voice. Calm. Measured. Older. Lucas. He froze. The voice sounded exactly like his own. Only 20 years older. If you're hearing this, you finally waited for the third knock. The tape hissed softly. You still think apartment 404 is a place. It isn't. It's an appointment. Lucas frowned. What? The older voice continued. It appears only when someone is about to become the next witness. The tape crackled. I made the same mistake. I searched for killers. I searched for hidden rooms. I searched for missing people. There weren't any. Silence. They were never taken. They stayed. Lucas instinctively looked toward the front door. Stayed where? The tape answered immediately. You'll understand in exactly. A pause. 14 minutes. His watch suddenly beeped. 3:46 a.m. Exactly 14 minutes until 4 o'clock. The older Lucas continued. Whatever happens, don't look out the bedroom window. Not even once. The tape abruptly stopped. The recorder clicked. Silence returned. The dispatcher spoke. Lucas, you heard that? No. She sounded confused. Heard what? The tape. There wasn't any tape. Lucas stared at the recorder. It just played. No. The dispatcher whispered. The line has been completely silent for the last 3 minutes. Lucas slowly backed away. The recorder still sat on the table. But the cassette was gone. The tape had vanished, as though it had never existed. Then, a child laughed, very softly, from somewhere inside the apartment. Lucas spun around. Nothing. Again, a little girl's laugh. Closer this time, coming from the hallway. He followed the sound. The bedroom door was open. Exactly as before. The closet remained empty. Only, the bedroom window now stood uncovered. The curtains had been pulled aside. Moonlight spilled across the floor. Lucas remembered the tape. Don't look out the bedroom window. He stopped. 3 steps away. Then he noticed something impossible. The moonlight wasn't falling into the room. It was flowing out, like water, as if the moon were inside the apartment, not outside. A tiny voice whispered behind him. You looked. Lucas turned instantly. Standing in the bedroom doorway was a little girl, 8 years old, bare feet, white nightgown, holding a cracked porcelain doll. Her face looked pale, almost translucent. She smiled politely. You weren't supposed to. Lucas lowered his pistol. Who are you? She ignored the question. Instead, she pointed toward the uncovered window. He's awake now. Lucas frowned. Who? The girl's smile slowly disappeared. The man who lives on the other side of midnight at that exact moment. The bedroom window slowly fogged over by itself. Someone began writing on the glass from the outside, one trembling letter at a time. L-U-C-A-S. Then, a final sentence appeared beneath his name. You were late last time. The other side of midnight, Lucas couldn't move. The words on the fogged window remained perfectly clear. You were late last time. His pulse hammered in his ears. The little girl quietly watched him, not frightened, not threatening, only disappointed. Lucas slowly turned toward her. What do you mean? Last time. She hugged the cracked porcelain doll tighter. You promised. Silence. You always promise. Lucas frowned. I've never been here before. The little girl tilted her head. Not yet. The room suddenly became colder. His breath turned white. The dispatcher was still connected. Her voice now sounded distant, as though she were speaking from underwater. "Lucas, what's your location?" he answered automatically. "Apartment 404. A pause. Then, "Lucas, there isn't any signal coming from apartment 404. Silence. "Your phone says you're standing in the middle of Ravencourt's parking lot." Lucas looked around. Bedroom, window, closet. Everything was still there. He whispered, "I'm inside." The dispatcher replied softly, "No, you're somewhere else." The call disconnected. Every light in the apartment went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the moonlit window remained visible. Then, the digital clock on the bedside table flickered. 4 a.m. It beeped once. Immediately. Every wall inside the apartment trembled, not from an earthquake, from breathing. The wallpaper slowly expanded, then contracted, like lungs. The apartment was alive. The little girl whispered, "Don't let it know you're afraid." Lucas kept his eyes on the walls. "What is this place?" She answered quietly. "It isn't an apartment. It's a waiting room." A deep sound echoed through the building. Not footsteps. An elevator. Old steel cables groaned somewhere far below. Lucas frowned. "There isn't an elevator to this floor." "There is now." The girl pointed toward the living room. "You don't have much time." Lucas carefully stepped into the hallway. The apartment had changed. The kitchen was gone. The bathroom no longer existed. In their place. A long hotel corridor stretched into darkness. Numbered doors lined both sides. 401, 402, 403, 404, 405, 406. The hallway continued far beyond what the building could possibly contain. Hundreds of doors. Thousands. Lucas slowly walked forward. Every door looked different. Some were new. Some were burned. Some were covered in claw marks. Every peephole was looking back at him. Tiny eyes blinked inside each one, watching, waiting. He stopped outside door 417. Someone was crying inside. A woman. Softly, repeatedly saying the same sentence. "I should have stayed awake. I should have stayed awake." Lucas reached toward the knob. The little girl grabbed his wrist. "No, they're sleeping." He stared at her. "They're crying." She slowly shook her head. "They're dreaming." Suddenly, every door in the hallway clicked at exactly the same moment. Thousands of locks turning together. One by one, the doors began opening. Not quickly, slowly, patiently. A narrow crack of darkness appeared behind each one. No rooms, no furniture, only blackness. Then, hands, pale hands emerged from every doorway, not reaching, not grabbing, simply holding the doors open. Lucas backed away. "What are they?" The little girl's voice became almost too quiet to hear. They missed their appointment. The elevator bell chimed. Ding. Somewhere far down the endless hallway, an old brass elevator arrived. Its doors slid open. Warm yellow light spilled into the corridor. A man stepped out. Black suit, gray fedora, leather gloves, carrying a thick leather appointment book. He looked completely ordinary, until Lucas noticed. The man's face had no eyes, only smooth skin, no nose, no mouth, nothing. Yet, he somehow smiled. The eyeless man slowly opened the appointment book, ran one gloved finger down a long list of names, then stopped. He turned toward Lucas, and in a voice that came from everywhere, calmly announced, "Lucas Hale." A pause. "You've already missed this appointment once." He closed the book. "So, tonight, we'll begin where your last midnight ended." The appointment book, the hallway became silent. Hundreds of open doors, thousands of pale hands, the old elevator waiting patiently, and the faceless man standing beneath its yellow light. You've already missed this appointment once. Lucas tightened his grip on his pistol. I've never met you. The faceless man slowly tilted his head. You've only forgotten. The leather appointment book snapped shut. The sound echoed impossibly far. Every open door immediately became quiet. The crying stopped. The whispers vanished. Even the pale hands disappeared back into the darkness. Only the doors remained open. Waiting. Lucas stepped forward. Who are you? The man answered without hesitation. I am the concierge. Silence. I don't decide who arrives. I only record who refuses to leave. The little girl beside Lucas lowered her eyes. You shouldn't have told him your name. Lucas frowned. I didn't. She looked at him sadly. He already knew it. The concierge opened the leather book once more. Every page contained only names. Thousands of them, each followed by a time. 12:01 a.m., 1:17 a.m., 2:46 a.m., 3:33 a.m. Every appointment ended exactly the same way. No departure time. Only checked in. Never checked out. Lucas noticed something strange. Some names appeared more than once, dozens of times. The same people, different years, different dates. The concierge calmly turned another page, then another. Finally, he stopped. Lucas's name appeared. Not once, not twice, 47 times. Every entry ended identically. Failed to remember. Lucas felt his stomach tighten. What is this? The concierge gently ran one finger beneath the final entry. Tonight's date. No status had been written yet. The space remained blank. Waiting. The little girl whispered, Don't let him write. Lucas looked toward her. What happens if he does? She answered with tears forming in her eyes. You become a room. The hallway lights flickered. Suddenly, Lucas understood. Door 401. Door 402. Door 403. None of them were apartment numbers. They were people. Every missing tenant, every forgotten visitor, every person who had opened the door at 3:33 a.m. The rooms were their memories. The concierge slowly nodded. Very good. You've remembered faster this time. Lucas stared. This time? The concierge closed the book. Every midnight teaches. Every cycle improves. You almost understand. A loud metallic groan echoed from somewhere above. Lucas looked upward. The endless hallway ceiling had disappeared. Instead, thousands of apartment floors stretched infinitely into darkness. Every level contained another hallway, another elevator, another apartment 404. Each one identical, each occupied, each waiting for another Lucas. Lucas whispered, How many are there? The concierge answered calmly, As many as necessary, until one of you arrives on time. Suddenly, the little girl screamed, not in fear, in warning. Lucas! He turned. The hallway behind them was collapsing, not falling apart, erasing. Doors vanished one by one. 401. Gone. 402. Gone. 403. Gone. Reality itself was deleting the corridor behind them. The emptiness advanced steadily. One door every second. The concierge checked his pocket watch, without eyes, without a face. He somehow smiled again. You have exactly. He listened to the ticking. 3 minutes. Before your room is ready. Lucas raised his pistol. This ends now. He fired. The gunshot echoed endlessly. The bullet passed straight through the concierge, not because he was a ghost, because there was nothing inside the suit. Only darkness. The empty suit slowly looked down at the bullet hole, then quietly asked, "Do you know why apartment 404 was chosen?" Lucas didn't answer. The concierge lifted one gloved hand and pointed toward the apartment door at the end of the corridor. The brass numbers had changed. No longer 404. Now they read 405. Lucas frowned. What happened to 404? The concierge's voice became almost compassionate. It checked in. Then, for the first time, the apartment door slowly opened from the inside. Someone stepped out, wearing Lucas's face, smiling, holding the same FBI badge, the same pistol, the same appointment book. He looked directly at Lucas and quietly said, "I've been waiting for you to replace me." The man wearing Lucas. Neither of them moved. The hallway became perfectly still. Two identical men. Same face, same height, same scar beneath the left eye. Even the wrinkles around their hands matched. Only one difference. The other, Lucas, never blinked. He smiled gently, not like a predator, like someone finally relieved. "You made it." Lucas raised his pistol again. "Stay where you are." The other Lucas laughed quietly. "I remember saying that." The concierge stepped aside, as though introducing an old friend. "He has completed 46 appointments. You," he looked toward the real Lucas, "are attempting number 47. Lucas shook his head. "This isn't real." The other Lucas nodded. "It wasn't for me either. Not the first time." He slowly tossed something across the hallway. Lucas caught it instinctively. An old leather wallet. He opened it. Inside, a faded photograph. Lucas, his younger sister, Claire. His father, standing in front of a lake cabin. The picture had burned years ago. 23 years earlier, he had watched it turn to ash. Yet, here it was, untouched. On the back, Claire's handwriting. "Don't forget why you became a detective." Lucas stopped breathing. Only Claire had written like that. She had disappeared. When she was 12, her body was never found. You remember now. The other Lucas spoke softly. "Don't you?" Lucas whispered. "My sister." The smile vanished from the other Lucas's face. "She came here." Everything around them became colder. The little girl lowered her head. "I'm sorry." Lucas looked at her. "You knew?" She nodded. "We all knew." The concierge calmly opened the appointment book again. Claire Hale. Lucas immediately stepped toward him. "Where is she?" The concierge slowly turned the pages. Thousands of names. Thousands of appointments. Finally, he stopped. Claire Hale status. Not checked in. Not missing. Instead, still waiting. Lucas grabbed the book. What does that mean? For the first time, the concierge hesitated, then quietly answered. She refused. Lucas frowned. Refused what? To forget you. Silence swallowed the hallway. The little girl began crying. Not loudly, just enough for Lucas to hear. Nobody refuses, she whispered. Nobody except her. The other Lucas closed his eyes. I searched for Claire. For 46 lifetimes. I found every answer except one. Lucas stared at him. What happened? The older version looked exhausted. I kept choosing the wrong door, as if responding to those words. The endless corridor trembled. Every numbered door swung open at once. Inside each doorway, a different memory appeared. Lucas graduating from the academy. Lucas holding his first badge. Lucas standing beside his mother's hospital bed. Lucas finding his father's empty truck. Lucas at Claire's birthday party. Hundreds, thousands, every important moment of his life. Frozen, waiting. The little girl whispered, "Choose carefully. You only get one." Lucas stepped closer to one glowing doorway. Inside, Claire was 12 again, laughing, running across the lakeside dock, exactly as he remembered. She suddenly stopped, turned, looked directly at him. Not through him, at him. Then she quietly shook her head. Oh, she mouthed silently. Not this one. The image instantly shattered like glass. The doorway went dark. Every remaining memory door slowly began closing. One by one, until only a single door remained open. At the very end of the impossible hallway. No number, no light, only darkness. Above its frame, someone had carved 3 words into black wood. Lost and found. The concierge slowly stepped aside. His voice had become strangely respectful. No appointment has ever returned from that room. The other Lucas looked at the real Lucas. For the first time, fear appeared on his face. If Claire is still alive, he swallowed hard. That's where she's been waiting. Then, a tiny child's voice echoed from inside the dark doorway. Not the little girl's voice. Another child. Soft, hopeful, barely audible. Lucas. A pause. Then the words that shattered every certainty he had left. You're finally old enough to find me. Lost and found, Lucas stood frozen. The voice had come from beyond the black doorway. Not an echo. Not a recording. A real child. You're finally old enough to find me. His hands trembled. Claire had disappeared 30 years ago. If she were alive, she would be 42, not 12. The little girl beside him whispered, "Time doesn't grow there." Lucas slowly walked toward the dark doorway. Every step made the endless hallway dimmer. Behind him, the numbered doors quietly vanished. 401, 412, 488. Gone. As though the building no longer needed them. Only the concierge remained, standing perfectly still, watching, waiting. Lucas stopped before the doorway. Above it, the words had changed. No longer. Lost and found. Now they read, "Everything you forgot." He stepped inside. Darkness swallowed him instantly. No floor, no ceiling, no walls. Only countless floating objects drifting through empty black space. A bicycle with one broken pedal. A child's red raincoat. A wedding ring. An old pocket watch. Thousands, millions of forgotten things. Every object slowly orbiting an invisible center. The little girl quietly explained, "People think they lose things. They don't. They leave them here." Lucas reached toward an old music box. The moment his fingers touched it, a memory exploded inside his mind. A woman singing. A tiny apartment. Rain against the windows. His mother. He jerked his hand away. The music box crumbled into dust. Farther ahead, rows of shelves emerged from the darkness. They stretched beyond sight, not filled with books, with names. Each shelf held glass jars. Inside every jar, a glowing memory. Some were bright gold, others barely flickered. The labels were handwritten. First kiss, last goodbye. Mother's voice, the day I forgave him. The face of my son. Lucas stared in disbelief. Their memories. The little girl nodded. Only the ones people chose to forget. At the end of the endless shelves, one cabinet stood alone, locked, covered in black dust. Its brass plaque read, "Hale Family." Lucas slowly reached for the handle. It opened by itself. Inside, only one jar remained. Everything else had been taken. The single jar glowed with a soft blue light. Its label simply read, "Claire." Before Lucas could touch it, a woman's voice echoed behind him. "Don't!" He spun around. Standing in the darkness was a woman in her 40s, long brown hair, gray coat, tired eyes. She smiled through tears. It was Claire, older, exactly the age she should have been. Lucas could barely speak. "Claire," she nodded. I'm here. He rushed toward her. She raised one hand. Please, not yet. He stopped. Why? Claire looked toward the glowing jar. Because that's not me. Silence. It's the last memory I still have of being your sister. Lucas frowned. What do you mean? Claire looked down. When I disappeared, I wasn't taken. I accepted a job. The darkness around them trembled. The concierge's voice echoed from somewhere impossibly far away. Employee number 404, your replacement has arrived. Claire closed her eyes. I've been keeping the hallway alive for 30 years. Lucas slowly shook his head. No, she forced a smile. The building doesn't trap people. It hires them. The words hit Lucas harder than any gunshot. You've been working here? Claire whispered. Someone has to remember. Everyone else. Suddenly, every shelf in the endless archive began shaking violently. Glass jars started falling, one after another, shattering across the invisible floor. As each memory broke, a distant scream echoed through the darkness. Hundreds, then thousands. Claire's face turned pale. They found us. Lucas looked behind him. The darkness was moving. Not like smoke, like a crowd. Millions of human silhouettes, walking silently through the void, each carrying a blank apartment door. They stopped together, raised the doors upright, then opened them all at once. Every doorway revealed the same impossible room. Apartment 404, occupied by Lucas, waiting, smiling, and every version of him slowly whispered in perfect unison, "Welcome home." Employee number 404. Millions of identical Lucases smiled from inside millions of identical apartment 404s. Not one of them blinked. Not one of them moved. They simply waited, watching him, as though deciding which one was real. Claire grabbed Lucas's arm. We have to leave. He couldn't take his eyes off the endless apartments. Those are me. Claire shook her head. No, they're everyone you almost became. The crowd carrying blank apartment doors slowly advanced. No footsteps, no breathing. Only the soft scrape of wood against an invisible floor. Each figure carried a door with no number, no handle, no peephole, just smooth gray paint, waiting for a name. Lucas whispered, "What are they?" Claire answered, without looking back. Vacancies. The archive shook violently. More memory jars crashed to the ground, each one shattered into light. Lucas suddenly heard voices. A little boy laughing, an old woman singing, a soldier screaming. Wedding vows, final goodbyes. Millions of forgotten moments escaped at once. The darkness itself began remembering. Claire hurried toward the center of the archive. There isn't much time. Lucas followed. What happens when all the memories break? Claire didn't answer immediately. Finally, she whispered, the building forgets who belongs here. And then, it keeps everyone ahead. A gigantic machine slowly emerged from the darkness. It resembled an old apartment directory. Hundreds of brass mailboxes. Thousands. Each tiny door bore a person's name. Every mailbox had one key. Every key was missing. At the top, large brass letters read, "Resident Registry." Claire stopped before one mailbox. Hale, Claire status, employed 30 years. She touched it gently. The tiny brass door opened. Inside, there was no mail, only a single heartbeat. Still alive, still beating. Lucas stared. What is that? Claire smiled sadly. My contract. Beside hers, another mailbox slowly slid open by itself. Fresh brass, untouched. The engraved letters appeared one at a time. Hale, Lucas. Status. Pending. A key quietly rose from inside. Floating. Waiting. Lucas stepped backward. I'm not taking that. Claire's expression changed. You already have. Lucas frowned. What? She slowly pointed toward his coat pocket. Confused. He reached inside. His fingers touched cold metal. He pulled it out. An old brass key, identical to the one the apartment manager had handed him, except this one had only one engraving. 4. Oh, 4. His breathing stopped. I've had this all along. Claire nodded. The building never invited you. It promoted you. Behind them. The concierge calmly entered the archive. For the first time, he removed one leather glove. Lucas stared. There was no hand beneath it. Only pages. Thousands of paper pages folded together like flesh, covered in names, dates, appointments. The concierge spoke softly. Every employee begins as a visitor. Every visitor believes they're investigating. They never realize they're interviewing. Lucas raised the brass key. So this is the contract? No. The concierge answered. It is your signature. Suddenly, every mailbox in the endless registry burst open. Thousands of tiny brass doors swung wide. Inside each one, a single human eye slowly opened. They all turned toward Lucas simultaneously. Then, every eye blinked once. The entire archive whispered together. He remembers. Silence. Then the whisper changed. No. The voices trembled. He remembers too much. For the first time, fear appeared on the concierge's featureless face. He looked toward Claire, then back to Lucas. Quietly, almost respectfully, he asked the one question no employee had ever answered. If you remember everyone, who will remember you? At that exact moment, a deafening knock echoed through the entire archive. Not 3 knocks, just one. So loud, the shelves collapsed. The mailboxes tore free from the walls. The millions of apartment 4s vanished. Even the concierge looked toward the darkness. Something had knocked. From outside the building. The knock from outside. The sound shook reality itself. Not the archive. Not apartment 404. Everything. The shelves cracked. The glass jars burst into clouds of light. Even time seemed to hesitate. Lucas had heard countless doors close in his career. Gunshots. Explosions. Buildings collapsing. Nothing had ever sounded like this. Because whatever had knocked wasn't trying to get in. It was trying to get everyone out. The concierge stood perfectly still. For the first time. His voice carried fear. It found the building. Claire looked toward the darkness. No, she whispered. It found me. Another knock, louder. The endless archive folded inward like paper. Entire rows of memories vanished. The millions of floating apartment doors spun wildly through the void. Lucas shouted, "What is outside?" Claire closed her eyes. No employee has ever seen it. Anyone who does is erased from every memory. The concierge suddenly snapped the appointment book shut. We're leaving. Lucas stared. You? The concierge nodded once. If the building falls, I cease to exist. The little girl quietly tugged on Lucas's sleeve. Listen. He became silent. Beneath the collapsing archive, someone was humming. A lullaby. Soft. Gentle. Painfully familiar. Lucas froze. His mother used to sing that exact melody fit every night before Claire disappeared. Impossible. She had been dead for 20 years. Claire looked terrified. It learned your oldest memory. Lucas frowned. What learned it? She slowly pointed upward. Not at the ceiling. Beyond it. Beyond the building itself. The thing outside. Without warning. A massive crack ripped across the darkness above them. Not a crack in stone. A crack in reality. Brilliant white light poured through. For one impossible second, Lucas saw beyond Raven Court. Not a city. Not a world. An endless black ocean stretching beneath a sky with no stars. Floating across that ocean were buildings, thousands of them. Apartment buildings, hospitals, hotels, schools, lighthouses, prisons, every structure drifting silently like abandoned ships, connected by impossible bridges made of clocks. Lucas whispered, "What?" The concierge answered quietly. "They're all waiting rooms." The crack widened. Something enormous passed behind the white light. Lucas couldn't see its shape, only its shadow. It was larger than cities, larger than mountains. The shadow moved slowly, as though searching. The little girl began crying. "It's looking for an empty place." Lucas frowned. "What empty place?" The concierge answered immediately. "A forgotten soul." Silence. When someone is forgotten by everyone, a new building is born. Lucas's heart sank. "So, apartment 404. Claire nodded. "Was once a person." Another tremendous knock. This time, one of the floating apartment buildings outside simply disappeared. Not destroyed. Forgotten. Every bridge connected to it dissolved instantly. Its windows went dark. Its name vanished, as though it had never existed. The concierge whispered, "It has started." Lucas suddenly remembered something. The brass key. He still held it. Only the engraving had changed. No longer 404. Now it read 405. Claire's face turned pale. "No." Lucas looked at her. "What?" She slowly stepped backward. The building already chose. The next employee isn't you anymore. Lucas frowned. "Then who?" Claire didn't answer. She couldn't, because the little girl beside them quietly smiled for the very first time. She looked directly at Lucas, then softly said, "My name isn't Emma." A pause. "My name used to be apartment 404. The world fell silent. Then, every forgotten child, every missing tenant, every employee knelt, not before the concierge, not before Lucas, before the little girl. The child who was once a building. No one spoke. Millions of silent figures remained kneeling. The concierge lowered his head. Claire did the same. Even the endless archive seemed to stop collapsing. Everything waited. Only the little girl remained standing. She looked no older than 8. Bare feet, white nightgown, the cracked porcelain doll still resting in her arms. Lucas whispered, "You said you were apartment 404. She nodded. "I was." He frowned. "Buildings aren't alive." She smiled sadly. "They aren't, until someone forgets." The little girl slowly knelt, placed the porcelain doll gently onto the invisible floor. It shattered, not into porcelain, into memories. Thousands of tiny glowing fragments floated upward. Each fragment became a face. Children, parents, soldiers, teachers, doctors, people Lucas had never met, all smiling, all disappearing into light. Claire whispered, "Those were her residents." Lucas looked at the girl. "Who were you before?" She closed her eyes. For the first time, she answered with a real name. "My name was Eleanor." Silence. I was 8, when nobody remembered me anymore. The first room appeared. Lucas felt the words settle like ice. "You became a waiting room." Eleanor nodded. One room, then another. Every forgotten person built another hallway, another floor, another building. The world you know is balanced on places nobody remembers. The crack in reality widened again. White light poured into the archive. The enormous shadow outside slowed. Watching, searching. Not for Lucas, not for Claire, for Eleanor, The concierge quietly spoke. "It has found the first room." Lucas turned sharply. "What is it?" The concierge remained silent. Claire answered instead. "We never gave it a name, because names make things real." Lucas looked toward the blinding crack. "Then what does it want?" Eleanor whispered. "It doesn't want people. It wants emptiness." The word echoed. Emptiness. Suddenly, Lucas understood. Every missing tenant, every employee, every forgotten child. They weren't imprisoned. They were filling something, keeping something, occupied. If every room became empty, something outside could finally move in. The entire archive shook violently. One enormous shelf collapsed. Millions of memory jars exploded. Their light rushed upward, straight into the widening crack. The shadow beyond it moved closer. For the first time, Lucas saw one detail. A hand. Not human, not animal. A hand made entirely of closed apartment doors. Thousands of doors layered together like scales. Each one had no number, no name. Every handle slowly turned. By itself. The concierge stepped backward. His voice trembled. "It has begun opening." Claire grabbed Lucas. "We have to seal the first room." Lucas frowned. "How?" Claire looked toward Eleanor. "She can't do it anymore. She forgot herself centuries ago." Lucas slowly looked at the little girl. She seemed smaller now, fading. "Eleanor," he whispered, "what happens if you disappear?" She smiled with heartbreaking calm. The waiting rooms disappear. And then, she looked toward the giant hand beyond reality. Everyone waiting inside them is forgotten forever. Lucas clenched the brass key. There had to be another way. There always was. He searched every memory, every clue, every impossible thing he had seen since entering apartment 404. The clocks, the third knock, the appointment book, the missing hallway, Claire, the registry, the jars. Then, one sentence echoed in his mind. Not from Claire, not from the concierge, from the older version of himself on the cassette. Apartment 404 isn't a place. It's an appointment. Lucas's eyes widened. He finally understood. The building had never been choosing employees. It had been searching for someone willing to remember everyone else. He looked directly at Eleanor, then at Claire, then at the endless sea of forgotten souls. Quietly, he smiled. "I know how to end this." Claire's face instantly turned white. "No, you can't." Lucas looked at the brass key one final time. Its engraving slowly changed again. No longer 405. No longer 404. Now it carried only one word. Keeper. The concierge slowly removed his hat. For the first time, he bowed, not out of respect, out of mourning, because he already knew what Lucas had decided. The keeper. Claire's voice broke. "You don't know what you're saying." Lucas looked at her calmly. "I do." The brass key had become strangely warm in his hand. The single engraved word glowed softly. Keeper. The concierge remained bowed. He had witnessed countless appointments, countless replacements. Yet, never this. Lucas stepped toward Eleanor. "You've carried this place alone, for centuries." The little girl smiled faintly. "I don't remember how long. You stop counting after everyone forgets your birthday." Those words hit Lucas harder than anything else, not because they were tragic, because they sounded ordinary, as though loneliness had become routine. The archive continued collapsing. Shelves folded into darkness. Names disappeared from existence, one after another. Claire pointed upward. "We're out of time." The enormous crack now stretched across the entire sky. The impossible hand had pushed halfway through. Thousands of apartment doors covered its fingers. Each door slowly opened. Behind every doorway, absolute nothingness. Not darkness, Not death. Absence. The concierge finally spoke. It has no name. Lucas nodded. I know. Because if it had one, someone could remember it. The concierge looked up. For the first time, there was admiration in his empty face. You've learned. Lucas turned toward the endless registry. Millions of brass mailboxes lined the darkness, each containing a heartbeat, a forgotten life, a waiting soul. He suddenly understood something. They're not prisoners. Claire shook her head. They're promises. Lucas whispered. Someone stayed. So someone else could leave. Claire closed her eyes. That's what a keeper is. Another violent tremor. 1,000 mailboxes fell. The heartbeats inside them faded. The people attached to those memories vanished into white dust. Eleanor quietly cried. I can't hold them anymore. Lucas walked to her, knelt, placed one hand on her shoulder. You don't have to. The brass key floated from his hand. It rose into the air. The registry began humming. Every mailbox slowly unopened. Millions of tiny lights emerged. Not memories. People. Transparent figures. Every tenant. Every employee. Every forgotten child. Every soul who had ever waited. They looked toward Lucas, not begging, not pleading. Simply waiting for his decision. Claire stepped between Lucas and the floating key. If you become keeper, everyone leaves. Lucas smiled. That's the point. She shook her head desperately. You don't understand. You won't watch over them. You'll become the memory that remembers every other memory. Lucas frowned. And? Claire whispered through tears. There won't be enough room left to remember yourself. Silence. You'll forget your name. You'll forget me. You'll forget why you stayed. You'll remember everyone, except Lucas Hale. The words echoed endlessly. Forget yourself. Remember everyone else. Lucas looked at the millions of waiting souls. Children holding parents' hands. Old men still wearing military uniforms. Young women clutching wedding rings. People who had waited decades, centuries, for someone to let them go home. He already knew the answer. He looked at Claire one last time. When you disappeared, I spent 30 years wishing I had found you. Claire nodded. You did. He smiled. So don't ask me to lose everyone else. The floating key suddenly burst into brilliant white light. The entire registry began unlocking itself. One mailbox, then another, then millions. Every heartbeat was finally free. The waiting rooms started dissolving. Apartment buildings vanished across the endless ocean. Hospitals disappeared. Hotels, schools, lighthouses. Every impossible structure faded into light. The shadow beyond reality roared for the first time, not in anger, in hunger, because the rooms were disappearing. Its doorway into existence was closing. The concierge slowly removed his coat. Beneath it, there was no body, only countless floating pages, every appointment he had ever recorded. They lifted into the air, caught in the same light. He looked at Lucas. I've waited since the first room. A pause. Thank you. He smiled. A real smile, then scattered into thousands of blank pages. That became white birds, flying toward the closing crack. The last thing Lucas heard before the light consumed everything was Eleanor whispering beside him. You were never late. You were exactly on time. Then the world went completely white. The world that forgot apartment 404. Lucas opened his eyes. Morning sunlight. Warm. Ordinary. He was sitting on a wooden bench outside Ravencourt Apartments. Birds were singing. Traffic rolled lazily through downtown. Everything looked normal, almost too normal. His phone buzzed. 7:42 a.m. 3 missed calls. Captain Ellis. 2 text messages. Where are you? The missing tenant case has been closed. Lucas frowned. Closed? He slowly looked toward the apartment building. The weathered sign still read, Raven Court, 12 stories. Fresh paint. Families carrying groceries. Children laughing near the entrance. No police tape. No abandoned lobby. No darkness. He walked inside. The elderly manager smiled warmly. Can I help you? Lucas stared. It was the same man who had quit yesterday, only now, he looked 10 years younger. You gave me a brass key. The manager laughed. I've never used brass keys. We switched to electronic locks years ago. Lucas hurried to the elevator. 4th floor. The doors opened. Bright hallway. Fresh carpet. Warm lights. Apartment numbers lined both sides. 401. 402. 403. 405. 406. 407. Lucas stopped. There was no gap. No hidden doorway. No apartment 404. Just a blank section of wall where one more apartment should have existed. He ran his fingers across it. Smooth drywall. Nothing else. A little boy walked past holding his mother's hand. He looked at Lucas curiously. Mister? Lucas smiled. Yeah? The boy pointed toward the empty wall. My grandma says nobody should ever build another apartment there. Lucas's heartbeat quickened. What do you mean? The mother quickly interrupted. I'm sorry. He has a big imagination. She led the boy away, but before disappearing into apartment 405. The child looked back, smiled, and quietly waved, exactly the way Eleanor always had. Lucas stood there for a long time, trying to remember. Claire's face, the concierge, the endless archive, the giant hand. Every memory seemed fuzzy, like dreams fading after sunrise. He knew they mattered. He just couldn't hold on to them. His phone rang again. Captain Ellis, you alive? Lucas answered. Yeah, we've got another missing person case. Lucas rubbed his forehead. Where? Old St. Vincent Hospital. A pause. The weird part. The entire 5th floor doesn't exist on the blueprints. Lucas froze. Something deep inside him stirred. Not fear, recognition. He looked one final time at the blank wall. For just a second, he thought he saw a tiny girl standing there, bare feet, white nightgown, smiling. Then she was gone. Lucas left the building. The moment he stepped onto the sidewalk, a soft breeze carried a child's voice past his ear. Not from behind him, not ahead, from everywhere. Thank you. He turned. No one. Only sunlight and ordinary life. Across the street, an old bookstore displayed a single antique clock in its front window. Its hands had stopped forever. At exactly 3:33, inside the clock, barely visible beneath decades of dust, someone had carved 6 tiny words. Every waiting room needs a keeper. Lucas stared at the inscription. He had no idea why tears suddenly filled his eyes, or why, for the first time in 30 years, he could no longer remember his own sister's face, the keeper's last memory. Lucas couldn't remember Claire's face. He knew he had a sister. He knew he had spent half his life searching for her. But whenever he tried to picture her, his mind became a blank page, as if someone had gently erased only the pain, leaving behind the love. 3 days later, Lucas drove to Old St. Vincent Hospital, built in 1919, closed for almost 40 years. The emergency entrance hung open. Police cars surrounded the building. Captain Ellis met him outside. You've got to see this. Lucas followed him inside. The hospital smelled of dust and antiseptic, nothing unusual. Until they reached the elevator. Ellis unfolded the original blueprints. Look, the building had 4 floors. Basement, ground floor, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, no 5th floor. Yet, the elevator buttons included one extra button. 5. Its brass surface looked untouched, as though no finger had pressed it in decades. A patrol officer approached nervously. "Sir, we've checked the cameras." Ellis sighed. "Don't tell me." The officer swallowed. "Every camera shows the elevator stopping. On floor 5. Lucas frowned. "But there isn't one." The officer nodded slowly. "Exactly." Lucas stared at the button. Something inside him whispered, "Don't press it." Another voice, one he couldn't identify, whispered something else. "Remember." His hand slowly reached toward the brass button. Just before his finger touched it, he noticed an almost invisible scratch beneath the number. 6 tiny words. Someone already stayed here once. Lucas's heart skipped. He didn't know why, but tears welled in his eyes again. He stepped back. "No." Ellis looked confused. "What?" "We're taking the stairs." "There aren't any." Lucas looked toward the concrete stairwell. There are always stairs. The officers forced open the heavy fire door. A narrow staircase climbed upward, 4 floors, exactly as the blueprints showed. Then, one more flight appeared. Old, dust-covered, hidden behind a concrete wall that shouldn't have existed. Every officer fell silent. At the top, there was no hospital corridor, only a single wooden door. No room number, no handle, only an old brass plaque. It simply read, "Observation." Lucas slowly placed his hand against the wood. Warm, just like the brass knob of apartment 404. A memory flashed across his mind. Not an image, a feeling. Someone gently placing a hand on his shoulder. A little girl's laughter. A woman's voice saying, "You were exactly on time." The memory vanished before he could hold it. Ellis whispered, "Do we open it?" Lucas remained silent for a long moment. Then, he slowly stepped away from the door. No. Every officer looked at him in disbelief. Why not? Lucas smiled faintly. Because somehow, without understanding how, he already knew the answer. Some doors aren't waiting to be opened. They're waiting to be left alone. The brass plaque suddenly cracked. A thin beam of warm sunlight escaped through the wood. The hidden staircase began fading, one step at a time, as though it had completed its purpose. Within seconds, the 5th flight no longer existed. Only a blank concrete wall remained. The officers stared in stunned silence. Captain Ellis looked at Lucas. What just happened? Lucas looked at the empty wall. For a brief moment, he thought he heard dozens of distant voices, laughing, not trapped, not calling for help, simply going home. He smiled, without knowing why. Somewhere, beyond every forgotten room, beyond every impossible hallway, a keeper no longer stood alone. And for the first time since the world had begun keeping secrets, no one was waiting anymore. The letter that had no sender. 3 months passed. Old St. Vincent Hospital was demolished. Nothing unusual was found beneath it. No hidden floor, no mysterious room. Officially, the case never existed. Lucas never argued. Some truths didn't survive paperwork. Life slowly became ordinary again. Morning coffee, case reports, traffic, rain, sleep, yet every so often, at exactly 3:33 a.m., Lucas woke without knowing why. Not frightened, just listening. He never heard knocking again. Only silence. Peaceful silence. One rainy Thursday, a plain white envelope arrived at the precinct. No stamp, no return address. Simply, Detective Lucas Hale. Written in careful handwriting. Captain Ellis frowned. Someone dropped it off. When? No camera caught them. Lucas quietly smiled. He had heard that sentence before. Inside the envelope, there was only one sheet of paper, completely blank, except for one line at the bottom. Some memories are safer when they choose you. Nothing else. No signature. Lucas folded the letter. For reasons he couldn't explain, he didn't throw it away. He placed it inside the inside pocket of his coat. Exactly where? Long ago. A brass key had once rested, though he no longer remembered the key. That evening, Lucas stopped by the old bookstore across from Raven Court. The antique clock still stood in the window, its hands forever frozen at 3:33. The elderly shop owner noticed him staring. Interesting clock. Lucas nodded. It doesn't work. The old man smiled. Oh, it works. It simply measures something else. Lucas looked up. What? The bookseller chuckled. Waiting. Lucas almost laughed. Almost. Because something about that answer felt comfortably familiar. Before leaving, he noticed a dusty leather journal displayed behind the counter. No title. No author. Only a small brass emblem pressed into the cover. A tiny apartment door, without a number. Lucas asked, "Can I see it?" The bookseller hesitated. That's strange. What? I've had that journal for 40 years. No one has ever noticed it before. Lucas opened it. Every page was blank, until the very last one. There, written in elegant handwriting, were 6 names. Eleanor, Claire Hale, the concierge, Emma, Lucas Hale. One final line beneath them. Keepers never truly leave. Lucas stared. I don't know these people. The bookseller gently nodded. I know. That's why your name is last. A cold breeze moved through the shop. The journal quietly closed by itself. When Lucas opened it again, every page was blank. Even the names had vanished. He purchased it anyway. He wasn't sure why. It simply felt like something he shouldn't lose. That night, before going to bed, Lucas placed the empty journal on his desk, turned off the lamp, closed his eyes. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the journal slowly opened by itself. No hands touched it. Ink began appearing across the first page, one letter at a time, slowly, patiently, as though someone, far away, was writing. Lucas slept peacefully. He never saw the words appear. By sunrise, the first sentence was complete. Case file. 001. Below it, a title formed, The House That Forgot Its Front Door. And beneath the title, a final handwritten note. Keeper, someone is already waiting. Case file 001. Lucas didn't remember opening the journal, yet every morning, there was one more page filled, always in the same handwriting, neat, patient, as if whoever was writing had all the time in the world. He never saw the words appear, only the finished pages. The first entry began simply. Case file 001, The House That Forgot Its Front Door. No author, no date, only a single sentence. Some places are abandoned because everyone leaves. Others are abandoned because something arrives first. Lucas read the line 3 times. His chest tightened. He couldn't explain why. Over the following week, the journal continued writing itself. Each dawn, another page, another impossible case. A lighthouse with no ocean. A train station where every clock ran backward. A church that appeared only during eclipses. A staircase descending beneath a cemetery. Every case ended the same way. No conclusion, only one instruction. Observer required. Lucas finally tested something. Before bed, he wrote one question inside the journal. Who are you? The next morning, his question had disappeared. Beneath it, a repletor, someone who was remembered. Another question. Are you alive? Morning came. Another answer. Enough to write. Lucas smiled despite himself, then asked the only question that truly mattered. Why me? He almost didn't sleep that night. When dawn arrived, only 5 words had appeared. Because you stopped opening doors? Those words lingered with him all day. Captain Ellis noticed. You look different. Lucas shrugged. Do I? You stopped chasing impossible answers. Lucas looked out the window. Maybe. I finally learned the difference between solving something and disturbing it. Ellis laughed. I'll pretend that made sense. Weeks passed. The journal grew heavier, not because more pages appeared, because the paper itself changed. Old, yellowed, edges worn, as though decades passed between every sunrise. Then, one October evening, the writing stopped. No new pages, no fresh cases, nothing. 3 nights, 4, a week. Silence. Lucas almost missed it. On the 8th morning, the journal was open again. Not to a new case, to the very last page. Only one sentence had been written. The observer has become the witness. Lucas frowned. Below it, fresh ink slowly spread across the paper. He watched it happen for the first time, letter by letter. Not fast, not slow. Like someone writing from the other side of thin glass. The sentence finished. Do not answer the phone at 3:33 a.m. Lucas instinctively checked the clock, 3:31 a.m. He hadn't gone to bed. Rain hammered against the windows. The city outside was silent. Then his desk phone rang. Once, he stared at it. No caller ID. The journal's ink was still wet. The phone rang again, twice. Lucas's hand hovered over the receiver. He remembered apartment 404. The third knock. The doors. The waiting rooms. He slowly withdrew his hand. The phone rang a third time, then stopped. Complete silence. Lucas exhaled. The journal closed by itself. Satisfied. Outside. The rain stopped instantly. Morning sunlight broke through the clouds. He smiled. For the first time, he understood. Not every mystery wanted to be solved. Some mysteries only wanted to know whether humanity had finally learned when not to answer. The last rule. Lucas never heard the phone ring again. Weeks became months. The journal remained silent. No new cases, no impossible places, only blank pages. He almost believed it was over. Almost. Winter arrived early. Snow covered the city. On Christmas Eve, Captain Ellis handed Lucas a thin manila folder. No address, no fingerprints, no postage. Lucas smiled faintly. Again? Ellis nodded. It was sitting on my desk this morning. I thought it was yours. Lucas opened the folder. Inside, there was only one photograph. Black and white. Taken sometime in the 1960s. A family stood smiling in front of a newly built apartment complex. Children laughed. Parents waved. Nothing unusual. Until Lucas looked closer. The building behind them was Raven Court. But something was different. Apartment 404 still existed. Its balcony was decorated with flowers. Curtains hung in the windows. Someone clearly lived there. Lucas turned the photograph over. A handwritten note covered the back. Before it became a waiting room, it was simply someone's home. For several minutes, Lucas couldn't stop staring. He had spent months believing apartment 404 had always been impossible. He had been wrong. It had once been ordinary, like every other place, before someone was forgotten. That night, Lucas drove to Raven Court. Snow drifted across the empty parking lot. Most windows were dark. Families slept. Children dreamed. The blank section of wall where apartment 404 should have been remained unchanged. He quietly placed the old photograph against it. Nothing happened. He almost laughed at himself. Then, a warm breeze passed through the freezing hallway. The photograph slid gently off the wall, landing face up on the floor. Only, The image had changed. The smiling family was gone. The balcony flowers had disappeared. Apartment 404 itself had faded completely, leaving only empty brick. As though the building had rewritten its own history, Lucas picked up the photograph. A second note had appeared beneath the first. Fresh ink. Still wet. Every forgotten place was once loved. He closed his eyes. For reasons he couldn't explain, that sentence hurt more than every nightmare he had survived. He returned home shortly before midnight. The journal was waiting on his desk. Open. One final page had been written. Not a new case. Not another warning. Just 3 rules. Rule 1. Never open a door that asks to be opened. Rule 2. Never answer a voice that already knows your name. Rule 3. If a forgotten place ever remembers you, smile. Leave. And never look back. Lucas read the page twice, then quietly tore it from the journal. Folded it. Placed it inside his wallet. He never intended to forget those rules, even if one day he forgot everything else. The journal suddenly became lighter. Its pages turned blank once more. Then, without wind, without hands, it slowly closed. The brass emblem on its cover disappeared, leaving nothing but plain black leather, an ordinary notebook. Its work was finished. Years later, after Lucas retired, young detectives occasionally asked him one strange question. What's the most terrifying case you ever investigated? Lucas always smiled, looked out the window, and answered exactly the same way. The one I was never supposed to solve. He never explained further. Because some stories survive, only while they remain unfinished. And somewhere, far beyond forgotten buildings, beyond abandoned hospitals, beyond every impossible hallway, a little girl named Eleanor was no longer waiting. She was finally home.